And then just for fun, things I think about too are like, okay, great. So like what would be the market value of the Giza pyramids? Probably in 2000 BC. So I like thinking, I don't know, out of the box per se about cultures.
Hello, Gabrielle. Thanks for coming on with us today.
Hi, Jeff. Thank you so much for having me and the opportunity to speak about my passion for real estate.
Great. So we met through the University of Washington. How did you connect with the University of Washington and real estate?
Great question. So I attended law school at the University of Washington and started taking classes in the College of Built Environment as well as the business school. And why I did that is actually in my undergrad, I studied archaeology of the ancient world. And we created a narrative, specifically ancient Egypt, through the landscape and then the written text. So I analyzed pyramids and through that analyzation thought, okay, what does this mean for the culture? So they have so much emphasis on these great monuments. And it was actually through the written text within the pyramids that we learned, okay, it was about the afterlife. And so to me, the importance of seeing how a landscape shapes value systems um, and focus is tremendously impactful, including the written word. That's actually partly why I went to law school. And then just for fun, things I think about too are like, okay, great. So like what would be the market value of the Giza pyramids? Probably in 2000 BC. So I like thinking, I don't know, out of the box per se about cultures.
Got it. Okay. And so now, what is your current role or position? What do you do?
Yes. So I am now graduated past the bar, thank goodness. And I currently am a tax associate at a top tier firm. And what I do is I focus on state and local taxation. And you might think, oh, that sounds horrible. But I guarantee you it's pretty fun. And if you have any business, it's important. And so I focus on state and local, but there are many levels to taxation. So you have federal, you have state. So for in Washington, of course, that's Washington. Then you have all of these local jurisdictions. So if you're doing business in Tacoma, there's a tax in Tacoma. What about Yelm, Washington? And something that I am passionate about is a lot of companies don't know that per se in startups. So they create an amazing product and they go to sell it everywhere and their valuation booms, but they never reported tax on software. And that is a huge repercussion if they go to sell their company. And so for me, I like advocating for companies and preventing tax liability and also following the rules.
Great. I can hear your passion about real estate. Where did it all come from?
Yeah, my passion for real estate. Okay, so for me, family is number one. And the idea that real estate can benefit families and the greater community really drives my passion. And so, first, let's talk about passive income, right? So there's passive and there's active income. And of course, the IRS has a definition for this, but to summarize it, um, active is when you're doing something continually engaged in that business. And so for me, I think of a legal job, and that's about 50, 70 hours. I know some people who work 80 hours in that field to gain income, and that's a lot of work for income. But then we have this other pool, passive, tax at a different rate. So we're in capital gains versus ordinary income, right? And with that, you lay the foundation. Sure, it takes a lot of work if we're talking about real estate, right? You have to find a site, you have to maybe do some repairs. But then once you secure some type of tenant, you just allow them to live their life and you collect that revenue in. And so that's one of the reasons why I love real estate. It's another way to set your family up for success with passive income. And then something else that I really enjoy is it's a tangible asset. So unlike stocks or bonds, you have control over that. You don't really have control over what a company does, but with your tangible asset, you control, okay, do I want to add value to this by remodeling it? How am I going to be as a landlord? What do I want my relationship to be like with my tenant? Okay, and then you get to control what type of real estate you want to invest in. So do you want to do residential? Do you want to do office? There's so many variables you can control. And then finally, why I'm passionate about real estate is the impact it has on the built environment. So I spoke about the pyramids in the Giza Plateau. That impacts people. That's why people visit that even today, is how grand those are. But on a different scale, we can talk about my dad owns a pizza company in Alaska. So he has real estate and retail. And location matters. Like, okay, if you're picking up your family and you're going to go play hockey, like, is that in a location where you can easily drive through and grab a quick pizza? And so those types of assets create impact on the community, um, and make memories. And so that's why I'm passionate about real estate.
Nah, nice. Love it. Love it. And the opportunity to create generational wealth. You talk about your dad and talk about
Yes.
others that have come after you. And there's a lot of tax advantages to owning real estate. What are some of the ones that you see and would advise others to take a look into if thinking about real estate?
Yes, love this question because this is what is most exciting is the tax. As a disclaimer, I have to say nothing I say is legal, tax, or financial advice. And for advice, I highly recommend seeking an attorney. If you're a Fortune 500 company, you can contact me. I work with specific corporations and billion-dollar enterprises. And so going back to the question of tax advantages. So some tax advantages, high level, let's start with deduction. And if that's like a confusing word for some people, it's just a subtraction from your total income, right? So that means less tax on your total income. That's great. So with real estate, the IRS code encourages real estate. And so they say, okay, if you own some type of rental property and you have mortgage interest, you have property insurance, you have bills for advertising, improvements, okay, subtract that from your overall income. So an easy example would be say you accrue 25K in 1 year. Your expenses on the property are about 8,000 grand. Okay, if those are deductible, then your total taxable income for that is going to be 17 grand. So it decreases that. And it's just so advantageous. And also the idea that the code actually wants you to have good relationships with your tenants, right? They're encouraging you do those improvements. Make sure the roof is repaired, right? Your heating system is up to date. Like there's so much advantage for the greater community in that. And another one would be, of course, depreciation. And the IRS is kind enough to say, right? Okay, an asset has a certain lifespan. For residential, it's 27.5 years. For commercial, we're at 39 years. And they know there's going to be wear and tear. So you can take reductions each year for that wear and tear. An example would be, right, you buy a property, it's residential for 300K, and you have that spanned across 27.5 years. So each year you get to take a reduction about $11,000. That's so advantageous. But you have to be careful about the recapture, right? So when you go to sell that property, you actually do have to pay tax on all the reductions. But again, the code is kind and they have the 1031 exchange. So if you want to defer tax further on, you can swap that property with another property of equal or greater value, and you can defer your gains further on until you eventually sell the property, or you can pass it on to your heirs, which has a whole nother school of thought on advantages that we don't even have time to get into. But those are just a few of the high level ones.
Nice. And what it really means is like, I mean, real estate is a great vehicle, but also you need help. You need people on your team like yourself to help people to figure out how to do it. And then, you go as you start to go into with 1031s, your step up in basis when plan back to, I always go back to kind of for generational wealth to help others that come after you with this great vehicle we have in real estate.
Exactly. Exactly. It's magnificent.
So good. So you were just recently a student, albeit in law school. I work with a lot of undergraduates. If you had a piece of advice to give a young, driven college student going to go out in the work world in real estate or something else, what piece of advice would you share with them?
I love this question. And my number one advice would be go into the office every single day. The office market, it will probably love me for this. Go into the office every single day. It doesn't matter if your policy mandatory is 3 days a week. And actually, it's kind of great that it's this hoteling system because you can choose where you sit usually. well, depending on your office. But I also recommend hoteling a desk right next to or as close as you can, where everyone can see you, including the partner. So when they walk by, they see you, they know you're in consistently, they see your dedication. And a lot of times you'll be the first one they think of when they need help with a project. It's free marketing in a way. So I recommend going into the office 5 days a week and finding that seat close to the partner.
Ah, I love that. Never thought about it. I should tell my students to do that too. Come to class every day, sit in the front row, and your instructor will see
Yeah.
you. So,
Yeah.
well, good. Another thing. So, is there a book or that you've read that's had a great impact on your life, or you would suggest to someone else to consider reading?
Yes. Okay. So with this question, I thought of two of them. The first one is called Love Does, and the second one is Getting to Yes. And both premises of these books are about being bold in your passions, but also working together with other people. So, Love Does, an example, it's a short anecdote of stories of Bob Goff's life, who actually is a lawyer and humanitarian, and he helped with huge cases in Uganda. An incredible man, but he has these anecdotes about persistence. And one of his stories is he graduated from undergrad and he got C's, just an average student. He didn't have the grades to get into law school, but he was determined to go to a specific law school in California. So he got denied, but he went in and he told the dean, I really want to come here and I'm going to sit in front of your office until the day you tell me I'm accepted. And he sat there for a week. And a week later, the dean came out and said, okay, Bob, get your books, you're admitted. And that changed the trajectory of his life and for others as well, because he was able to help in these cases in Uganda. And then the second book I recommend is Getting to Yes. And I have to recommend this as a lawyer. This is a negotiation book. And what I love about this book, though, is that it defines negotiation not as like a winner or a loser, but everyone has a seat at the table. People have different needs. It's good to figure out what your opponent needs and what you need and see if you can cross connect those. And also, just because you don't per se win at that negotiation at the time doesn't mean there won't be other negotiations that are memorable that the person will say, hey, I had a really good time like negotiating with you. I want to keep that relationship and let's go again. Specifically in Seattle, it's a small town. So I think that winning can also mean maintaining a good relationship with your colleagues or opponents.
Great. Well, I've read one of those, not the other. I'm gonna have to add it to my Audible list to listen to sometime. So noted, noted. Great. So if people wish to connect with you, how's the best way for them to do so?
LinkedIn. I have an account that you can post stuff in the link when you post this video. And my name is Gabrielle Signs, Sines. Find me on LinkedIn, follow me, add me, message me. I love reaching out to people or connecting in any other way for a cup of coffee.
Great. Well, I'll have a link to your LinkedIn on here. And I want to say thanks so much for coming on today and sharing your passion for real estate and some of your knowledge as well.
Thank you so much for your time, Jeff. And I really appreciate this opportunity.
Wonderful. Thank you.
And then just for fun, things I think about too are like, okay, great. So like what would be the market value of the Giza pyramids? Probably in 2000 BC. So I like thinking, I don't know, out of the box per se about cultures.